This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Broadcasting live on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. In the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. In the nighttime hours, 1150 AM, KKNW in Seattle. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Tuesday. Good to have you here today, Matt and Patrick. And indeed, Patrick, we did hear the news at the top of the hour correctly. Donald Trump referred to Charlottesville as Charlottetown.
I don't even know what two cities he was confusing when he said that.
Well, isn't Charlottetown, isn't that up in Canada? Isn't that Prince Edward's Island or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh, yeah, and this race is it's in Prince Edward's Island, the official capital of the city of Charlottetown, Prince Edward's Island. And this race is close, you say? Wow. I wonder, is he going to order the mob to attack Charlottetown now? How dare they correct me? It's Charlottetown is no longer, we need to attack Charlottetown. We need to go get them. Dear Lord. Just forgets the town that he basically said that there were good Nazis and good KKK in. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we have Patrick Coolican from the Minnesota Reformer talking to Brett. And I want to start today with saying something's up, okay? Something is up because there's some things that are just not adding up at this point. And I'm kind of starting to shake my head. So I'm kind of... How are these races actually getting closer? Because I have seen multiple national news outlets kind of implying, these races are getting close. Now, I want to remind everyone, before Charlottetown today, dear Lord, Donald Trump the last 2 weeks has only done basically the following two things. Get gropey with Laura Loomer, and the syrup of epicac of relationships. He's gotten handy with Laura Loomer, and he's basically obsessed about making sure everyone gets angry at Haitians in Ohio for doing something that he has made up them doing, eating pets, which they are not doing. And that is all he's done. So not exactly, how would you say, really improving his appeal. And this doesn't, this is a real questionable thing. Now, granted, obviously you had a lot of positivity after not only the DNC, but also Kamala Harris absolutely smacking Donald Trump around at that debate. But if anything, you would think to yourself, well, that debate sure didn't help him. And the whole thing, the racists were already going to vote for him, correct? That's one of the things that, I think is pretty clear is the racists were already going to vote for him. So it's not like, I don't think there were too many undecided racists out there hoping that Kamala Harris might appeal to their demo and making the final decision of, I guess not. And it's. So there is a little bit of a question here about what is going on, because I don't see anything. And by the way, let me add on 2 more little points. There have been multiple stories that talk about the overwhelming money advantage the Democrats have right now and the overwhelming volunteer advantage the Democrats have right now. There have been multiple stories, especially this last weekend, that expressed that the Trump campaign, which was going to, instead of having the RNC do their door knocking, get out the vote, opening up offices across the country, getting volunteers, paid staff members, and doing that they were going to basically outsource all of that to the private sector, which has been an absolute disaster for them. Multiple states, they've given millions of dollars to groups, and they haven't done a thing. In one state, I think it was Nevada, they basically already pulled that contract from the freelancer that they were going to do and had to find someone else. And we're talking tick-tock goes the clock. I mean, we are almost at the end of September here. That's not when you start ramping up your get-out-the-vote groups. So you have a lot of things. Trump is a raving lunatic. The racists are already there. So it's, when he's out there putting out his racist rhetoric, it's not like he's appealing to anyone else. A very large portion of the Republican Party is defecting from him, which is undeniable. You have a money advantage for the Democrats. You have a volunteer advantage and an enthusiasm advantage for the Democrats right now in this election. So these polls that are showing, these are getting close, they don't make any sense. Now, the one thing I thought about was Donald Trump really did not want this election to be about Project 2025. And the whole they're eating pets thing, he's very good at this. Taking something and doing something even more outrageous to take the bad news off the front page. I mean, he's a guy that, how many times during his presidency when he was kind of dead to rights for doing something stupid, did he all of a sudden go on out there and basically do the presidential equivalent of dropping his pants and waving his cheeks at, the press corps, and then basically they have to cover that. And so it took the bad news off the headlines. He's very good at that. And that's why I think they keep pushing this. Although it's going to be interesting to see how much more they push it, because in Ohio, you can swear out an arrest warrant as a private citizen, and the Haitian groups have actually sworn out an arrest warrant for Trump and Vance for spreading lies about their community. And the courts agreed with them. So those arrest warrants are actually active right now for them. So we'll see how much more that they're going to insist on the, spreading the lies. But is it the fact that 2025 really hasn't been much of the news cycle? It's been some. I've seen some coverage of it. I don't know. But it was, frankly, two polls that kind of started keying me off that, okay, I think something else is going on here. And these are two polls, and they were posted by Political Polls on social media. And this is, the first of these polls is, once again, this is one of those polls where you see this, and it was from Redfield Wilton. I don't know anything about them. My guess is that they're kind of a right-leaning poll group. I'll get to that here in a second. They say Arizona's a tie. Florida's Trump's +5. Georgia, Trump is +2. North Carolina, Trump +1. Nevada's a tie. Michigan's a +1 for Harris. Pennsylvania tie. Wisconsin tie. Once again, the majority of polls are showing that Harris is up, especially in Michigan, Wisconsin, even in Arizona and Pennsylvania, by more than one or tied. It is the case. So seeing this poll come on yesterday from Redfield Wilton is a little discouraging. But the guys at Political Polls, which put that poll out, also put out this poll about new Senate poll in swing states. In Arizona, Gallego, the Democrat, leads by 5. Florida, Scott is leading by 4. Nevada, Rosen, that's the Republican. The rest of these are all Democrats. Rosen in Nevada +9. Michigan, Slotkin +9. Pennsylvania, Casey +6. Wisconsin, Baldwin +5. So, once again, they've got Wisconsin as a tie, but they got Baldwin winning by 5. They got Pennsylvania a tie. Casey's winning by 6. You got Nevada as a tie. Rosen's winning by 9. Arizona, they got a tie. Gallego's up by 5. Michigan, they got a 1-point Harris lead, but it's a 9-point lead for the Senate. Okay, all right. There's something wrong there. This is the same pollster looking at the same states, finding Senate races which are overwhelmingly kind of favoring the Democrats right now, But when it comes to the general election, what they're saying is, particularly I'll pull out Nevada and Michigan, that there's going to be basically 10% of the electorate in those states who vote for the Democratic Senate nominee and then are going to turn around and vote for Trump? No. Don't get me wrong. Sure, maybe 1-2% if it's a good day for Trump. Maybe. But those kind of numbers? That doesn't make any damn sense. Then there's the North Carolina paradox. This is from The Hill. North Carolina GOP gubernatorial candidate Mark Robinson is trailing the Democratic challenger Stein by 14 points. This is a High Point USA survey. Now, this is a poll from August, and that was pre-I'm a Nazi who loves the transgender porn thing, which I'll get to a little bit later on. So I can't believe that's tightening up. Just not with his base. But yet, they have Trump up by 1 or 2 points. So wait a second. You're telling me 15% of the electorate is going to vote for the Democratic gubernatorial candidate and then turn around and vote for Donald Trump? I'll give you it's a southern state. I'll maybe knock my 2% in Nevada and Michigan up to a 5 on a good day for Trump. But that doesn't make any damn sense. It makes no sense whatsoever that you have that much of a gap between the gubernatorial candidate and the presidential candidate on the same ticket. The reverse coattails is going to kick in there. And granted, once again, I have zero doubt Robinson's trailing that badly. I mean, what I think we're looking at here is well, and I'll throw 538 in there. 538, they say, well, it's a statistical tie in outcomes. They do that thing where it's like, here's all the outcomes that they could happen, and they say it's a statistical tie. Well, it's not a statistical tie. It's 57-43 for Harris. Don't get me wrong. 2016, 538, when they had a little bit of freaking integrity, actually had Hillary Clinton winning something like 75 or 80% of the time, and then Trump still won. So it's no guarantee. That's basically, tarot cards, if you ask me. But still, the way it's presented is a very specific way that it's a toss-up. Well, it's a 57-43. That's not a toss-up. I think right now, the right-wing news media, which controls a large portion of our news media, and I think the right-wing agenda is pushing that these polls need to tighten up, because if this continued down the same path as it was going before, then basically Trump was going to get blown out by 20. And let's face it, when you look at those the political polls, and they say the Senate races are all favoring the Democrats by multiple points, quite a few, you're kind of getting into the realm of disbelief that amount of voters is going to turn around and vote for Trump. More on this, especially from a local angle, when I come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. You run your mouth, I ran a mile, I've heard it all now. Don't you dare look back, just keep your eyes on me. I said you're holding back. She said, shut up. It's the Matt McNeil Show. So there is this real conundrum. So what's going on here? How are the Senate polls showing 7, 8, 9-point leads for Democrats, yet somehow you're saying to me 10% of those people that are going to vote for the Democrat for Senate are going to turn around and vote for Trump? No, I'm not buying that. That you're saying to me in North Carolina that somewhere between 12 and 15% of the electorate is going to vote against the Robinson, the Republican governor candidate, and then going to turn around and going to vote for the Democrat, going to vote for the Democrat there, and then turn around and vote for Trump. No, that's not going to be it. And it's clear to me at this point, there seems to be a clear manipulation, because once again, what has Trump been doing? It's not like his messages have become more salient and more convincing. Yesterday, he told a bunch of farmers he was going to start taxing that John Deere products, which is a mainstay in agricultural America, are going to cost them 3 times more than what they have been paying in the past because reasons. And, he's not appealing. I mean, once again, the main thrust of his campaign the last 2 weeks has been pets being eaten in Ohio, a story they pulled out of their caboose. So what's going on here? Well, I'm going to bring you Chicago, Seattle. I'm going to bring you to a local story, but you'll see where I'm going with this. I want to make sure you understand this, and this has to go with the Star Tribune. Yesterday, the Star Tribune put out a poll that said that Harris was leading in the state of Minnesota by 5 points, which I'm not buying. I think it's a much higher lead, but that's what they're saying. They did something very weird in this poll. Now, for the laymen who haven't been to Minneapolis, St. Paul. Minneapolis is its own city. It borders the city of St. Paul. Not only do those two cities border, but the counties that each one of those cities are in also border each other. Hennepin County is where Minneapolis lies. Ramsey County is where St. Paul lies. And that's the county line is those two cities, and they are bordering with each other in the state of, in the metro area. So with Hennepin County, where Minneapolis is located at, as you can imagine, there's a substantial amount of suburbs in Hennepin County that wrap around Minneapolis, because on one side of it, it's Ramsey County and St. Paul, and pretty much the vast majority of the rest of the area around Minneapolis is in Hennepin County directly. And including the fifth biggest city in the state of Minnesota, Bloomington, where the Mall of America is, and right by where the airport is. The sixth biggest city, Brooklyn Park. You have, I believe, as well, like Maple Grove. You have Plymouth, Eden Prairie, Minnetonka. These are all suburbs of the west side of Minneapolis that are fairly large cities in their own rights, suburbs there, just like you have in Seattle, just like you have in Chicago. You get it. Usually when a newspaper releases a poll, especially in a state like Minneapolis, St. Paul, which has got a fairly large metro area in the Twin Cities, where you have 3.7 million people in the cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, currently 16th, one step behind Seattle, which is one step ahead of us, and Chicago, of course, the third biggest metro area in the country. Minneapolis, St. Paul is 16, and when they release this information, they'll usually, considering there's such a heavy weighted nature to the Minnesota politics in the Twin Cities metro, they'll rank this as Minneapolis, St. Paul voters, suburban voters, and then outstate voters. Sometimes they'll even break the outstate voters into northern Minnesota, southern Minnesota, western Minnesota. You get the point. They didn't do that. For the first time ever, and by the way, I am not the only person. Many people are flabbergasted that the Star Tribune did this. They separated out Hennepin County and Ramsey County and treated those two as Minneapolis, St. Paul, which they're not. The cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul are within those two counties. Roseville, White Bear Lake, there's other suburbs on the St. Paul side as well. These counties have a tremendous amount of the suburbs in them. A tremendous amount. As a matter of fact, I would say Hennepin County alone probably has half the suburban population of the Twin Cities in it on the west side, north side, and south side of Minneapolis. But for some reason, the Star Tribune decided to break this down. Hennepin and Ramsey County, so Minneapolis, St. Paul, and all the suburbs in Hennepin and Ramsey County. Then they counted the suburbs, which is like, okay, what's left there? And then outstate Minnesota, and I think they actually broke it down into multiple zones in outstate Minnesota. But they, needless to say, they still counted the suburbs just minus the vast majority of the suburbs. And funny story, when you take away where most of the people live in the suburbs with Minneapolis, St. Paul, most of the rest of the suburbs are kind of these tertiary areas like Farmington and Waconia and North Branch, maybe even into Wisconsin a little bit, but that wouldn't be part of the Minnesota poll. But it goes, it's they're outlying areas, and because of that, they lean more Republican. So funny story, their poll says, well, Trump's leading in the suburbs. No, he's not. I can tell you he's not. I live in the suburbs. No, he's not. Trump is not leading in the suburbs. But under the Star Tribune's new definition of the suburbs, which doesn't include the vast majority of the suburbs in Hennepin and Ramsey County, just these outlying suburbs, which are on the border of farm country, their numbers, and by the way, it still was very close, but still Trump led. What happened this morning? What happened this morning after the Star Tribune released this poll? All of a sudden, the Republicans around Minnesota saying, this is so close. The Star Tribune, that liberal rag, they've got us winning the suburbs. multiple Republicans quoting this poll, which leads me to ask the question, why would you do it this way, Star Tribune? Why? That makes no damn sense. You're taking away the vast majority of the suburbs for what appears to be the only reason so you can give Trump a win. And that's not your job. I mean, this is mind-numbing. Why would you take away the largest suburbs that all favor Kamala Harris and just throw them in with Minneapolis, St. Paul, saying, well, they lead in the cities, and then say in the suburbs it's this? No. You are intentionally distorting the reality of the situation to give Republicans what they want, a rallying point. And yes, the Star Tribune's owned by a conservative. Yes! That's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. And by the way, I'm not the only one. A lot of people, when I pointed this out, including my friend Bill Corbett from Riff Tracks, he's like, what? And I said, Roseville's a myth. And I said, no, it's not. It actually exists out there. But you get the point. You get the point. Why are you manipulating it like this? Is this just about giving Republicans a talking point? Because mission accomplished, they're all out there saying, we're winning the suburbs, we're winning outstate, if not for just those liberal Minneapolis, St. Paul. You've basically written their press releases for them by taking half of the Twin Cities suburban population and removing them from the suburbs and still counting a group as the suburbs. By the way, underrated band, the suburbs. Underrated band. If you want to, what I'm seeing this week is there is a collective agreement by pollsters and the people putting out polls that they're trying. It's like, we can't allow this race to get out of control. So we need numbers that make them look good. We need to give them talking points. We need to do this because when you look at the reality, North Carolina, those Senate races in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the reality is not going Trump's way. We'll take a break, come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
Where's my telephone?
Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk. In the nighttime hours, 11:50 a.m. KKNW in Seattle. And in the afternoons, live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. I have no idea why the Star Tribune did that. It seems real suspicious. Seems really suspicious. As a matter of fact, I've had two people who have, off the record, who have extensive, polling and, political journalism experience saying they've never heard of anything like that, to take the vast majority of the suburbs around a city, throw them into the metro area, and then with the remaining suburbs, call that the suburbs, and then kind of downplay it just so you can get to a point where you say, see, Trump, you're in the lead. Yeah. Maybe we should take Minneapolis out of the city and put it into the outstate Minnesota. Wow, look at the lead that Harris has in outstate Minnesota. Wow, she's dominating out there. See, that wouldn't be fair, would it? No, it wouldn't. It would be pretty obscene, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. Kind of like taking all the suburbs and, never mind. I'd love for them to explain it to me. I would love for them to explain, that doesn't make much sense. Speaking of making not much sense, North Carolina Republican gubernatorial nominee Mark Robinson. He lashed out on Monday against the false lies about him on CNN Investigative Report. Did he do it on that porn site? No, I'm sorry. Oh, God. Yeah, that's not going to go away, man. That one left a mark. You're going to be, which I maybe you enjoy that. I don't know. I mean, it's not my place to judge, man. The CNN report on Thursday that uncovered years and years and years of disturbing comments that he made on a forum of a porn website. I mean, it doesn't speak well for the quality of porn that's on that website that you're going to the comments section. It's like going to the strip club and saying, you know what, I'm there for the appetizers. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Basically, though, as he said, that he criticized CNN about these false lies. In the same breath, he suggested maybe some of those comments were really by him. Oh, really? During a campaign event, his first since the CNN report triggered a mass exodus of his staff and his campaign. Robinson, the state's lieutenant governor, vowed to take legal action against CNN over its story. Among other things, the reporter said Robinson referred to himself as a black Nazi, described himself being sexually aroused by secretly watching women in public showers, called himself a perv, we know, who likes pornography with transgender people in it, a sharp contrast to his present-day transphobic rhetoric. And once again, I could care less what kind of porn you like, okay? As long as it's legal and everyone involved is consenting adults, perfectly fine with me, 100%. Legal, everyone's consenting, whatever floats your boat, ahoy, matey, off you go. You like watching porn and then adding comments to the comment section? Whatever floats your boat, man. Make sure Grammarly's and you're going to probably have Grammarly explode on you. I'm just going to let you know. Needless to say. No. Sorry. Anyway, but if that's what you like, knock yourself out. It's your world. The problem is your hypocrisy. As you sit there and you ramp up as much transphobic rhetoric as you can, you're sitting and apparently enjoying transgender porn. Well, you'd better understand I'm coming after CNN full throttle. Hello there. Full throttle, one of my favorite porn. Never mind. A visibly angry Robinson told reporters after taking legal action against, talking about taking legal action against the news network. We're not here to talk about 15 or 20-year-old salacious false lies, he continued in a rant. But then in his shouting, he suggested those past comments may be real after all. They want to talk about what possibly happened 15 years ago. He's better with a keyboard. He's a master at one-handed typing. Sorry. I am a horrible, horrible man. I have no doubt about that. Okay. He's much better with a single hand on the keyboard. Okay. Robinson began denying the details of the CNN report before they even came out. On Thursday, he preemptively recorded a video saying he wasn't dropping out of the race over CNN's salacious tabloid trash, much like a video he remembered. No, never mind. I don't think he added that video part. I think that was just me making a joke. But he's having a hard time convincing fellow Republicans that the report is nonsense, given how thoroughly CNN's reporters researched who was behind the username making vile comments on the porn site Nude Africa. Reporters linked the username directly to many of Robinson's biographical details and his shared email address. Since the report came out, 8 of Robinson's campaign staff, including his campaign manager, have resigned. A news outlet in Raleigh, WRAL News, reported Monday that the staff may have finally called it quits with Robinson, who is already known for making sexist, racist, Islamophobic, homophobic, and otherwise vile comments. But outside of that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you like the play? Because he refused multiple offers from supporters to connect him with tech specialists who look into who is using his username on the porn websites. Seeing Robinson rebuff those offers to help appear to sow doubt amongst his staff that was telling the truth about this post. I will say this. A friend of mine who doesn't have direct knowledge, but it's got some knowledge, I'll just say it like that. Apparently, that's what happened is the staff went to him and said, if this is not true, you need to hire somebody right now to go out and find who did this. And we need to get rid of this if this is a rumor. He told me apparently he initially said yes, but then when they came to him with people who are going to do forensic computer searching and try to find this out, that's when he waffled and that's when everyone bailed on him. Is that the second he said, nah, I don't know if I really want to do this, and they basically all walked. That's at least the story I heard, and it seems to match up here a little bit here. Beyond his staff quitting en masse, the Republican Governors Association said it won't be spending any more money on buys for him in the state of North Carolina. GOP elected officials in North Carolina are distancing themselves from Robinson for fear of being associated with him in the final weeks before the November election. I almost read that as erection. No, it's election. Election. Thank you. Sorry. You can't give a story like this to me. I'm a child, for goodness sakes, that lives. I mean, yes. The Cook Political Report promptly shifted its forecast for North Carolina's gubernatorial race from leans Democrat to, oh gosh, no. He's got no chance. Robinson is running against the state's Democratic Attorney General, Josh Stein. Oh, insert your fine porn jokes here. I'm not going to tell you to stop, for goodness sakes. I want you to do it. And by the way, not the only creeper that we know of today, John McEntee. Now, this is that jackass who puts out those TikTok videos. He's like, you know, when Harris is talking about people dying in parking lots, I'd like to see with just one. And all those people had to come on out. He's the guy that basically does these far-right, the douchiest of douchiest TikTok videos for far-right conservatives. Well, funny story, we're now starting to learn a little bit about him and his background. McEntee, a 34-year-old Trump aide and the co-founder of the right-wing dating app, reportedly reached out to two teenage girls via social media and proceeded to push conversations in a direction that made them extremely uncomfortable and invited both, one repeatedly, to come visit him in L.A. Grace Carter tells Wired that McEntee reached out to her via Instagram in October 2023 when she was an 18-year-old freshman at North Carolina State University. McEntee, using the business Instagram account for the Right Stuff dating app, first reached out to Carter and then offered her a free branded hoodie. As the two continued to converse, he eventually invited her to visit him out in Los Angeles and wouldn't take no for an answer at first. I remember I told my boyfriend about it, and I was joking that he was going to be the other girl. Carter tells Wired, I was like, I could use a free trip. That's initially why I kept the conversation going. And one message sent to Carter trying to entice her out to L.A. McEntee tells her that I think you're a liberal, but then adds, as long as you'll be fun, I don't care. Wow. McEntee gave up on inviting Carter out to L.A. after she declined to meet him over a winter break earlier this year. Another woman who pushed to remain anonymous similarly said that Vance reached out to her when he was 18. Or I think they mean McEntee. They put down Vance here. McEntee reached out to him when she was 18 and apparently even more forward with his intentions when he was with Carter. It was very sexual from day one, she claims. He kept making comments about my age and how hot it would be to sleep with someone who was my age. Yeah! Yikes. This is one of the guys that's behind Project 2025, actually one of the main champions of Project 2025. And in trying to entice 18-year-olds to come, yeah. I also want to make sure I mention one more thing here. This is in regards to Melania Trump. And if you missed this story, and someone brought this up today, and I'm like, yikes, okay, because this is a very valid point. I want you to imagine if Doug Emhoff, the second husband of the United States, the vice president's husband, her spouse, very cute couple, imagine he showed up to a campaign event and got a mysterious six-figure check that no one seems to know where that check came from. You think for 1 second the news media in this country wouldn't be going, where did the money that Doug Emhoff got go from? Where did it come from? Oh, is this a payoff? Oh, Kamala Harris needs to get out of the election. That's what they'd be like. That would be the national news media going crazy because Doug Emhoff, boy, oh boy, there's something sneaky going on. Funny story, the standard for Republicans, a little different. A smidge. Melania Trump was paid $237,500 to speak at a fundraiser for the LGBTQ plus conservative group Log Cabin Republicans this year. But the source of the six-figure paycheck is apparently a mystery. According to Donald Trump's latest financial disclosure form, the former First Lady, who has been notably absent from her husband's presidential campaign efforts, was paid to participate in a speaking engagement at the conservative LGBT group at Mar-a-Lago in April of this year. The disclosure listed the Log Cabin Republicans as the money source, but Charles Morin, the organization's president, claimed otherwise, telling CNN that the group had not cut Melania the check. So who cut her the check? Because that's not a small check. $237,500? Someone paid her a lot of money to be there. And once again, we can get into the complexities of a guy who's running for president, his spouse, during the campaign, during the final weeks of the campaign, going out and speaking to groups and getting paid. There's a definite ethical question there. But this is even more mysterious because, once again, the people they said wrote her the check have said they did not write her the check. Records show Melania Trump was also paid $250,000 for a log cabin Republican event in December of 2022, one of 3 payments for $250,000 or more that she received for speaking that month alone, just after the former president announced he was running for re-election. According to Donald Trump's prior year financial disclosure form, one of the events took place in Florida. The other was in California group, Fix California, which was founded by a group, a far-right group, but he did not respond to multiple comments. The former First Lady was also paid $155,000 by a Trump-aligned super PAC called Make America Great Again, Again. You guys are just lame at this stuff. Make America Great Again, Again, otherwise known as MAGA. This is for a speech she gave in Palm Beach, Florida in December of 2021 before Trump was a candidate. She has a history of appearing for log cabin Republican events. In 2021, she was also the guest host of Honor the Group's annual Spring Spirit of Lincoln Gala. I want to remind you, this isn't one check. This is multiple checks. Basically, well over $1 million right now that she has gotten. And no one seems to be asking the question, where'd the money come from? Because I don't think the money is coming from legit sources. Is this some sort of payoff to keep her quiet on the sidelines? I don't know. It kind of seems real sketchy, but I can tell you one thing. If this was Doug Emhoff, the news media would be going crazy. Take a break, come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Nice to have you with us today. Well, so basically, if you've been paying attention, Donald Trump, not only is he trying to ramp up a bunch of lawsuits to try to throw out the results of the election, not only is he trying to take over he has successfully taken over the Georgia Election Board, and they basically seem determined to make sure that no matter what, that Donald Trump's going to win. They're going to, I'm serious, let's just call it what it is. The Georgia Election Board seems to already, they are intent on making sure Donald Trump wins that state, and they will throw out as many votes as they need to make that happen. That's clearly what's going on down there. But there was a pressure campaign in another state to change how they hand out their electoral votes, and that has basically blown up in their face at this point. A pressure campaign from Republican allies and Donald Trump to change Nebraska's election law was dealt a significant setback on Monday as a pivotal Omaha state senator said he would not support a last-ditch effort to overturn a 30-year law that awards electoral votes by congressional district. Then the statewide winner-take-all. Most of us do. Only 2 states do this, Maine and Nebraska. State Senator Mike McDonald, a former Democrat who joined the GOP earlier this year, said in a statement Monday that he would not vote to change the law in Nebraska before the November election. Now, let's make sure we understand what we just said there. There would be no chance in hell for him to be able to get reelected if he went along with this. A former Democrat who decided after running as a Democrat, switched to the GOP, he'd have no chance at winning a re-election campaign if he basically went along with this. So he basically, out of preservation, said, "No, I'm not going to do this." He said in a statement that he would not vote to change this for the November election. After a deep consideration, it is clear to me right now that 43 days from Election Day is not the moment to make this change. I have notified Governor Jim Pillen that I will not change my long-held position, and I will oppose any attempted changes for our electoral college system before the 2024 election. McDonald has been one of the last best hopes from Republicans to change the law before November. He made clear that he had no interest in supporting the changes so close to the election. Nebraska voters, not politicians of either party, should have the final say in how we pick a president, McDonald said. I want to thank the voters who reached out to me for engaging in a democracy and showing America who Nebraskans are, fiercely independent, filled with pride about our great city of Omaha, and deeply devoted to the promise of American democracy. Once again, he has to. There's no way. I don't know if they have recall elections in Nebraska, but if this guy went along with it, he'd be gone out of office if they did, I imagine. The fight over a single electoral college vote from Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, which has become known as Omaha's Blue Dot, has emerged as a symbol of just how close the race between Trump and Kamala Harris might be. Even if Harris won the blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, but carried no other key battleground states, she would still need the electoral vote from Nebraska's 2nd District to secure the 270 electoral college votes needed to win the White House. Now, once again, that is presuming Nevada goes for Trump. So that Nevada goes for Trump, and then that one electoral college vote in Maine, which likely will go for Trump, goes for Trump. But that would be North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada all going for Trump. And then it would basically come down to if that one electoral college vote was there, that would be the case. I want to just say right now, because of everything everyone's saying, as you say something like that, I don't think that that's how it's going to come down. I don't, because I can only imagine what this country will devolve into if that's as close as this race was. If it comes down to one, I've got to imagine there'd be attempts to steal ballots, to burn down election offices. It would, every state that was, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, there would be massive efforts there to try to overturn those election results from the Republicans, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. It would be ugly. And I'm not saying it wouldn't go the other way, too, especially if there were some close races. Would the Democrats go down and try to overturn those elections? So, yeah, I hope it doesn't come down to that. I don't think it will. I honestly do not think it will. But, yeah, this is where it's at. So, Trump believes he will win all 4 electoral votes in Nebraska, but he also said he was going to win New York. So he actually did. Wait, he actually did a campaign event in New York State. There are plenty of states he needs to win. He ain't going to win New York. He is not going to win New York. And so the fact that he is in New York is I think he just seems lost at this point. But he desperately wants to win all those votes. The 5th one has been increasingly fretting about, leading him and his Republican allies to mount a late effort to try to change state election laws only weeks before the ballots are cast. He called into a meeting of state senators last week, urging them to change the election laws before November. It should be noted that Lindsey Graham, that guy, he basically was up there specifically, had gone to Nebraska multiple times. They thought that this was going to be a clean sweep in Nebraska. And then once again, Tim Walz, who's from Minnesota, of course, and I know that, he was born in Nebraska. And he went down, and one of the smartest things the Harris-Walz campaign has done is they immediately sent Walz down to the Omaha district, that 2nd Congressional District, and he rallied the blue Democrats in Omaha. And from what I've seen, that's about a 6 or 7 point lead right now for Harris in the 2nd Congressional District in Nebraska. And so it was an incredibly smart move. That's telling you that she's looking at the entire playing field and trying to figure out where they're getting money, or where they're going to get their money, AKA the electoral college votes. And yeah, that was smart. And would I be surprised if Walz doesn't go back 1 or 2 more times? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say this about Nebraska Republicans. Nebraska Republicans are a little bit like Utah Republicans. They're very different. They are very different than the rest of the Republicans. And it's not that I don't disagree with them. I do disagree with them. But Nebraska Republicans, they just, this idea that corporate America can jam anything down their throats, they're not really big on that, especially when it comes to infringing on farmers and ranchers' rights, that's for sure. So we'll have to see. That being said, a reminder to everybody out there in Chicago and Seattle and Minneapolis, St. Paul, donate, volunteer, door knock, phone call, write a check, register to vote, and everyone votes come November. Everyone votes. Chicago, Seattle, have a good time. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next. Hour number 2 of the show here on your Tuesday. Matt and Brett and Patrick, did you see that? I mean, I've gotten an amazing amount of feedback from the listeners and on social media about the whole thing with the Star Tribune omitting all the towns in Hennepin and Ramsey County from the suburbs section of their poll, which makes no damn sense. I mean, what do you have? What would be the biggest suburb than minusing all the Hennepin? Would it be Woodbury? It might be Woodbury.
Yeah, if no Hennepin, I would probably say Woodbury or maybe somewhere in Anoka County, but I can't imagine anything.
Lakeville, maybe.
Lakeville's pretty big.
up there. Wayne or Coon Rapids.
Yeah, that's
Coon
what
Rapids,
I think, too.
Coon Rapids is on the other side of the river there, yeah.
Maple Grove, that's Hennepin County, isn't it?
That's
yeah.
Hennepin County.
Yeah.
That's like the 11th biggest town in the city. When it's the 5th biggest city in the state is Bloomington. The 6th biggest state is Brooklyn Park. The 8th biggest city was Plymouth, and then the 10th biggest city was Maple Grove. So yeah, it's real amazing what you can do with the numbers if you take out all the places where the people are voting Democrat and just roll that in with the Minneapolis city. Because like I said, it only seems like the only reason they did this was to give the Republicans the ability to say, we're winning the suburbs. Well, yeah, Waconia, Watertown, Benilde St. Margaret, sure, maybe. But, by the way, barely still, even minus all those cities, barely still. But they, it's like, we don't want the Trump fans to feel bad because the suburbs are all overwhelmingly for Trump. How do we do this? It reminds me when there was a stabbing out on 394 at Ridgedale, and they labeled the stabbing as happening in the Hopkins School District, which I said, I have never seen a school district labeled as where the stabbing happened, especially when that happened in the city of Minnetonka. I don't know why you wouldn't just say Minnetonka, but because they didn't want to make people in Minnetonka feel unsafe because there was a stabbing in Minnetonka, they listed it as the stabbing happened in the Hopkins School District.
Yeah, that's the Hopkins sections of Minnetonka, not the elite Minnetonka section.
How dare you? How dare you, peasant people? So I don't know what the Star Tribune's doing, but that's just plain.
That just seems weird. You can't loop in everyone in Hennepin County as part of Minneapolis. They're not even close to being the same cities culturally or geographically or really anything. Transportation, yeah.
Did you ever get a visit from a Schwann's truck?
Oh, not in that. I remember they used to come to our neighbor's house a couple times a week, way back when I was younger.
A week?
Yeah, no, I'm not exaggerating either. At least twice or 3 times a week.
It was a little pre-processed, just a smidge. It was. Because sometimes I needed to get some quick meals. I did have Schwann's up until the end here. Schwann's is basically the delivery company of the famed refrigerator trucks now known as Yellow, which, okay, why?
That's the name?
Yeah, Yelloh. I do not know why they changed the name. Schwann's was a better name. Some marketing idiot thinking, I'm smart. That's take the established name that people have been using for years and then jazz it up. Yeah, okay. It will shut its doors in November after 72 years of business, the company announced on Monday. They have closed delivery depots around the country and laid off hundreds of workers at this point. They still faces unsurmountable business challenges that have forced the closure. The current Yellow team has worked hard against external headwinds such as nationwide staffing challenges and the crushing food supply chain disruption caused by the pandemic. I'm going to tell you. I can tell you exactly why they collapsed. Because, like I said, I bought from them. Now, when Schwann's was in existence, they had these amazingly delicious chocolate ice cream bars. So it had chocolate ice cream, and then it had a hard shell of chocolate on top of it. They were good.
Double chocolate? That's right up my alley. That sounds good.
Yeah,
yes.
It was good. When they went to Yellow, they basically first, I would like to get chocolate ice cream bars. Well, we don't carry those anymore, but this is just like it. And it was like ice cream sandwiches. I'm like, no, that's ice cream sandwiches. I want the ice cream bars. I've only ordered forever. And they would not answer, well, I don't have those right now. They just said, I must be out of those. They didn't even carry them anymore. Multiple things they had. So they stopped carrying a lot of popular items. And then on top of it, the truck would get to my house at 10:30 in the freaking morning and, well, we're out of those. We're out of those too. We're out of those. Well, then why did you even come here? Why did you come here? I didn't need this. You've sent me 4 text messages. You've roused me out of my comfortable chair. And I don't have those. Hey, you wanted a pizza, but here's a bag of vegetables. Would you like that instead? No, I don't want the bag of vegetables.
Just the idea of calling it yellow, that kind of sounds like something bad is happening to your food if it's yellowing. So I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah. Maybe it's that guy from that show, the song from the 80s. He just branched out from music and he took over, distribution of food sales. I will say that did you ever live in a neighborhood that had milk delivery?
I did not know.
Oh, I did. I'm an old...
Are we talking like the milkman? From like the 50s?
No, just a random guy walking around. So I'll leave it. Here's a quart for you. And off he goes. No, of course the milkman with a truck and everything.
Really? They were still going in like the 70s, 80s? Okay.
Yeah, they were. Well, I was out in Rhode Island. When I was a kid and I was in Rhode Island, we used to have, hey, wicked good to see you. That sort of thing. Rhode Island, good to have you there in Rhode Island. But we had the milkman come on by. And they basically, someone wrote this, and I didn't realize this. I'll have to read this up. Apparently, when they allowed grocery stores to start carrying milk in gallon containers, the dairies did, that's what killed off the milkman. It's like, well, I have to go get the milk. I can get it cheaper at the grocery store. I don't have to go, I don't have some guy coming to my house. I'll do it then. And that kind of did them in. But it was nice. You used to be able to get cheeses, any dairy product, ice cream. It had a little cooler box outside your house. That was nice. I enjoyed that. Schwann's, I think it's just a dated principle. And considering you were paying a pretty premium price for a meal that, frankly, I could go to DoorDash and something like that and get something from someone else at pretty much the same comparable price, which was, frankly, not nearly as pre-processed and a lot tastier. I'm not surprised by this. Not surprised at all. It was a good ice cream bar. Oh, it was a good ice cream bar. Speaking of bad ice cream bars, though, Mike Lindell. Okay. We have to, one final thing before we get into Coolican here. I've got to bring this up because, Mike, what are you doing, man? I don't know if you've seen this yet.
Uh-oh, what's he into now?
Oh, it's conspiracy theorist and pillow pusher.
Is that... I like that title.
I thought that was J.D. Vance. Never mind. I'm sorry.
He needs a couch to go with those pillows, though.
Oh. Pillow pusher Mike Lindell is facing backlash online after his company marked down some of his pillows to $14.88, a figure seen as symbolic for white supremacists and neo-Nazis. On Friday, Lindell and his My Pillow business advertised... is it Mine Pillow or My Pillow? My Pillow. My Pillow. Yeah, it's a My Pillow business advertised the discounted products on social media, promising customers the ultimate comfort upgrade. Sleep like a dream with our standard My Pillow for just $14.88. The post read in part. Below the image of Lindell holding 2 pillows is a largely graphic prominently displaying the price. The number 1488 is a common symbol used among hate groups. 14 is shorthand for the 14 words, a stand-in for white supremacist slogan, while 88 refers to the abbreviation of Heil Hitler, since H is the 8th letter in the alphabet. 88 is considered to be that. This is not anything new. I have seen both of these. I've seen 1488 referred to for quite a while as known things. The posts were shared on platforms across the board. As of Saturday afternoon, the post remained online. Including lots of comments denouncing Lindell. The spokespeople for My Pillow did not return a request for comment. Lindell could not be reached for comment either. Okay, if this was an accident, the minute everyone started pointing out 1488 is a very specific number, and it's not necessarily something you see priced for pillows or something like 88. It's 99.
Right.
1488 is a very specific number associated with white supremacists and the neo-Nazis. You probably shouldn't have that out there. The fact that he kept it out there and he hasn't changed this, he could have, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize this. We'll change it to 1450 as the price. Okay, fine. The fact that he's, that's not good, man.
No, and that's such a weird number, too. Maybe if it was like 1489, but yeah, 88, you don't really see anything priced in a number that ends in an 8. So
yeah, I wanted to try.
Good.
I've tried a few different ways to look at this story and try to say there's some way that Lindell, is there some way he could have done this and just missed it? And the reality is the fact that everyone came out and said 1488. Oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. Oh, I don't know what he did, but needless to say, he didn't take the price down. He didn't change the price, and that's pretty bad, man. I can't imagine what it must be like to work for his company right now.
Oh, what amazing. Yeah.
I can't imagine what it must be like to work for his company. Let's get into the things with Patrick Coolican. Patrick Coolican from the Minnesota Reformer joins us every week here. What are you guys talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're talking about a report they did that talked about the number of these large livestock operations that are in southern Minnesota and how they are extremely concentrated in that region, even more so than Iowa. So we're going to talk about some of the environmental issues that have popped up in those areas with the large concentration of those livestock operations. Plus, we'll get Patrick's thoughts on the race for the Minnesota State Legislature as we'll take a look at some fundraising numbers and some of the specific races that might kind of serve as a good bellwether. So that's what we got on tap.
Patrick Coolican with Brett right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson with you here on a Tuesday afternoon. Well, of course, we are less than 2 months away from the election here in Minnesota and, of course, around the entire country. So we have lots to talk to in terms of electoral politics and especially what's happening in the Minnesota State Legislature. So joining us to talk about that, as well as some other of the great work that's happening at the Minnesota Reformer, is Patrick Coolican, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer, which you can find their work over at minnesotareformer.com. Patrick, thanks so much for coming back on the show today.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's start off talking about, before we get into the electoral politics, I want to talk about an article that Madison McVan recently wrote today, because Madison recently looked at the impact of large-scale livestock farming in southern Minnesota, where hogs outnumber people in some areas by a 40-to-1 margin. Now, while hog production is booming, it does come with environmental risks, which we are going to discuss. In fact, environmental activist organization Food and Water Watch released new maps showing the concentration of livestock in southern Minnesota being among the highest in the entire country, in fact, even higher than some areas of Iowa. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Factory farms or concentrated animal feeding operations, which is the definition according to the federal government, are considered highly efficient farms. But what makes these operations what I'm curious about, Patrick, is what makes these operations so profitable, and why do we have so many of them specifically located in southern Minnesota?
Well, it's the sheer efficiency. The agriculture operations like these environments because they can cram thousands of hogs into a barn, and it just allows you to produce more product for cheaper. It's as simple as that. It's just sort of like anything else in capitalism, where you get specialization and with it more efficiency.
Now, what also was mentioned during Madison's write-up was that during June flooding, at least 17 manure pits overflowed in southern Minnesota. So let's talk about how such incidents impact the local ecosystems and drinking water supplies, because this can be a problem when you have a lot of these consolidated livestock areas where they're put in one area. You can end up with a lot of runoff from the manure that eventually gets turned into fertilizer, causing a lot of environmental problems. So let's talk about the impact that these can have on ecosystems when you have these overflow like we had back in June with some flooding in Minnesota.
Right. I mean, as you mentioned, the ratio in some southern Minnesota counties of 40 hogs for every human, and they produce a lot of waste, and the waste has a lot of nitrates, and the nitrates contaminates water, and then you've got all kinds of other farm runoff. So, insofar as we have water quality problems, especially in the southern part of the state, this has to be part of the conversation. And there's also a really spotty regulatory regime when it comes to overseeing these operations and their safety.
And final question for you on this, and this has to do with the state legislature, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But of course, with flooding and other natural disasters that can really exacerbate some of the risks that are posed by these large livestock operations, are there any discussions at the state capitol among legislatures to try to mitigate these risks in Minnesota? Or is this something that more kind of the environmental activist groups are looking at the legislature to do in the future to help mitigate some of the problems we could have when we do have natural disasters or other disasters on these livestock areas?
It's very difficult because the agribusiness lobby is very powerful, and that's bipartisan. Nobody wants to be perceived as anti-farmer or anti-agriculture, and so it makes progress at the legislature difficult. But I suspect there is some kind of a breaking point. And especially since Democrats become so much more concentrated in the cities and suburbs, where they have just fewer members who are in Greater Minnesota and need to keep close ties to the ag lobby.
We'll read more about what Madison reported on this, including that map just showing how concentrated these livestock farming operations are in southern Minnesota. Find that over at minnesotareformer.com. Again, minnesotareformer.com, right on the front page. I want to switch gears now and talk a little politics and election season, since obviously that is coming up. We're going to be discussing the legislature. But before we get to that, I want to talk about something that came out from State Senator Omar Fatah, who, of course, represents a district in Minneapolis, because he recently called for a moratorium on new charter schools after a recent Star Tribune article reported on many of the problems with charter schools throughout Minnesota, even though we were one of the pioneers in this state for charter schools. Now, as you wrote, Patrick, you said this will likely endear him to Education Minnesota and other supporters of strengthening public education. And Fatah now is considered a possible candidate for mayor. So I'm curious, why is there this speculation around him possibly running for mayor, even though that office technically doesn't have a whole lot to do with managing public education in Minnesota? Let's talk about this speculation of him possibly running for mayor in Minneapolis.
Well, he's seen around the Capitol as a ambitious political player. He had a couple of big pieces of legislation attached to him. One was free tuition at the Minnesota State colleges and universities for families that who make $85,000 or less. He was also an important player in the Uber Lyft driver minimum pay issue. So he's got a high profile, and people that I've spoken to have said these discussions are happening in his camp. He doesn't return the reformers' calls, and we were not able to get a direct confirmation, but secondhand, a lot of people are talking about this. And it's certainly, the job of mayor, I think, especially since it was strengthened by the 2021 ballot initiative. I'm sure it's appealing when you're one of 67, especially in the state Senate, where the Democratic control is really on a knife's edge. The idea of being mayor and really being able to shape the future of a city is probably pretty appealing. So I honestly, I used that tweet of his as a vehicle to talk about his mayoral ambitions. But I also think it's interesting as something that we may be seeing, thanks to that Star Tribune series, a real sea change in how Democrats especially view charter schools.
Yeah, I could see that change definitely happening as well, as they're generally not quite as friendly as they were in years and decades past here in the state. I want to move on now and talk about races in the state legislature, because the Minnesota Republican Party appears to be in better financial shape than they've been, well, in quite some time. As the Minnesota GOP says, they set a record fundraising haul, bringing in about $1.8 million per their upcoming September report, with about $1.6 million cash on hand, which is quite a bit more than what they used to have. I think during their lowest point when they had, I believe, something like $5 or $6 total cash on hand in their accounts. But they've already made more in total contributions than in the 2022 election cycle, and they beat their previous 2018 cash haul. So my question for you is, do you think the GOP's fundraising performance is going to significantly impact the competitiveness of House races in Minnesota? Because they've raised a boatload of money, but I think you've also brought up the point, at least in your write-up in the Reformer email this morning, that typically in Minnesota we do have more Democrats than Republicans. So I'm interested in what impact this fundraising haul could have for Republicans as they try to win that race for control of the state legislature.
Yeah, first I want to note that the financial problems, the House Republicans caucus, they've always kind of done their own thing. So it's important to keep them, distinguish them from the state GOP, which is kind of a long dumpster fire, for lack of a better phrase. But the House GOP tend to be a better run operation. But I do think it's important that they are raising all this money. I think there's a lot of Republicans who saw the 2023 legislative session, and it's motivated them to act. A lot of business folks who believe the state went too far in one direction. Also interesting that they have more total contributors than in 2022. That says to me that they've got a small dollar donor program going. You're not going to win on the basis of this fundraising, but it's important to have a certain minimum amount so that you can at least be in the hunt. And beyond that, you need good candidates who are going to work hard, and knock on doors. Because a lot of these races are going to be decided by sometimes just dozens of votes, very often hundreds, and often the margin will be how many doors did that candidate knock on, and was he or she able to make the sale. But a lot of this will also be out of their control. It's going to be the national environment, which will trickle down. And I think overall, at least in Minnesota, it feels like a pretty good environment for Democrats. They have Tim Walz at the top of the ticket, which is certainly going to drive up Democratic turnout. And it seems as if Kamala Harris has shored up Democratic performance with younger voters. So it seems like it's going to be a good year. And I kind of jokingly talk about the super secret key to Minnesota politics is that there are more Democrats than Republicans, as you said. People don't seem to get this, despite the fact that Democrats have won every statewide race here since 2006. So all in all, I think it was always going to be a tough hill to climb for Republicans to take back the House. I thought it was doable, especially with Biden at the top of the ticket. I think it's less so now, but the reality is the way the map is drawn, and the Democrats still have this problem. A lot of their voters are packed into these urban districts. So, I still think Republicans have an outside shot. But right now, it looks to me like Democrats are on track to keep the House, depending on how some of these battleground districts go.
Well, one of those battleground districts that could be a big bellwether for control of the state legislature is District 26A in southeastern Minnesota, which includes Winona and some of the surrounding cities and counties in that area. And outgoing DFL Representative Gene Pelosi recently made some remarks cited by Republicans to argue for ending one-party control. Now, granted, these comments were largely taken out of context, but I'm curious, do you think these could impact the race in District 26A? I know you had a chance to speak with a DFL source who had some thoughts on this race. So let's talk about this one and what that impact could be in District 26A, since that could be a real bellwether for how the control of the state legislature will be determined this fall.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important pickup for Republicans. Democrats seem to think that even if they were to lose that seat, they're going to get their own pickups in the metro, or up north there's a couple seats. They're also looking at the Dotseth race. This is the state legislator Republican north of the Twin Cities, who is accused in court papers of long-running domestic violence against wife and stepson. And so even though that's a Republican-leaning district, Democrats feel like they can take that one, or at least force Republicans to play a lot of defense there, which would take resources away from swing districts where Democrats can flip a Republican seat. So, I mean, every seat matters when it's this close, but I feel like Democrats probably can lose a district like that Winona district, which is certainly trending Republican over the years, because there's plenty more in the metro that are trending Democratic.
Well, make sure you read about all of Patrick's commentary on the races by subscribing to the newsletter that the Minnesota Reformer sends out every morning. You can find that over at minnesotareformer.com. And, of course, follow all the great reporting they do as well over at minnesotareformer.com. We have been speaking with Patrick Coolican, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer, talking politics, the race from the state legislature, as well as Madison's great article talking about these livestock operations being heavily concentrated in southern Minnesota. Again, go to minnesotareformer.com. Patrick, as always, thanks for coming on the show today.
Always a pleasure, Brett.
All right, let's take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. We've got to talk about something that is disturbing here. But before I get into this, and you'll understand why I'm going to make this plea, I would like lawmakers to get into St. Paul this next year, and I would like for you to write a bill that basically says if we catch prosecutors and cops intentionally lying to put the wrong man in jail, then basically that there has to be some consequences for that. You can't. This case I'm about to read to you is it's hard to even comprehend how this happened, even with the corrupt police of the old Bob Kroll, the Delmonico, those police forces which were corrupt. This is hard to even comprehend, the intentional lies that had to be told here to throw the wrong man in jail. A juror who sent a Minneapolis man to prison for life and the sister of the man he was convicted of murdering sat side by side at the Hennepin County Government Center on Monday and said a grave injustice has taken place. 15 years ago, Edgar Barrientos was convicted in the drive-by shooting death of Jesse Leon Omar Mickelson. Mickelson, an 18-year-old Minneapolis Roosevelt high school student, was playing football in an alley behind his house when he was killed. Barrientos was 26 years old when he was sentenced to life in prison a year later. Everybody wanted it to be Barrientos so bad, but it wasn't. But I want what's right when what's right is right and wrong is wrong. And he wasn't the man who killed my brother, said Mickelson's sister, Tina Roseberry. I hope they can release him as soon as possible. The case against Barrientos came under heavy questions after the Minnesota Attorney General Office Conviction Review Unit released the result of a 3-year investigation into the conviction last month. In a scathing review of the case, the CRU blamed Minneapolis police, Hennepin County prosecutors, and Barrientos' defense team for a confluence of errors. By the way, Patrick, can you do me a quick favor and pull this up? 2009. Who is the Hennepin County prosecutor? Hennepin County attorney in 2009. I want to just make sure I'm right on that. Okay. Thank you, sir. Give me a heads up when you get the chance. Hennepin County, the police, Hennepin County prosecutors, and Barrientos' own defense team a confluence of errors that led to the wrongful conviction. They argue that because his conviction lacks integrity, the CRU recommends that the conviction be vacated and the charges be dismissed. And I got to let you know, this is hard to even comprehend. They tried to pull this off. Hennepin County Attorney Mario Moriarty said in the news conference that Barrientos should be a free man, and if the judge agrees to post-conviction relief, her office will dismiss all charges. Sarah Wolf, who was one of the jurors who convicted Barrientos, said developing a lasting connection with Rose Baer after the trial. After the CRU report was released, Rose Baer sent it to Wolf. She got to page 30 before realizing she convicted an innocent man. I don't feel like I was duped. I'm a smart person. I make my own decisions, Wolf said. I get angry at police for making such quick decisions and not following up on the evidence that was there. They made decisions to go after Edgar.
I believe it was Mike Freeman who was the county attorney in 2009.
Why does that not surprise me? Because someone needs to be dragging people out of their homes and putting them in chains because of this. This is just disgusting. The CRU report highlighted that no physical evidence tied Barrientos to the crime. Surveillance video showed Barrientos with his girlfriend in a grocery store in Maplewood 33 minutes before the shooting in South Minneapolis. All right, now I want to stop right there. So you see him in there. You're saying that he ran to the parking lot, pulled out, screeched over to Minneapolis just to, drive by and shoot this guy at 40 miles an hour? It doesn't make any damn sense. Barrientos also had a credible alibi. He was in his girlfriend's apartment in the suburb of St. Paul at the time of the shooting, an alibi his defense failed to properly argue for the jury. So all you have to do is go to her apartment and say, hey, where are the groceries you bought? Oh, you brought them here, and you unpack them, and he's there at the time of the shooting in his girlfriend's apartment. Yeah, it's clear this guy wasn't the guy, but it gets worse. During the investigation, police recreated the route Barrientos would have taken from the grocery store to the scene of the crime, told the jury he could have made the drive with plenty of time to shoot Mickelson. The CRU worked with the retired officer from the Minneapolis Police Department who provided an expert report that rejected that investigation and said the drive likely would have taken more than 33 minutes, making it impossible or improbable, if not impossible, for Barrientos to be the shooter. So once again, an actual cop that wasn't crooked in 2009 basically went out there and drove this. They basically lied. They lied to say that he was there because they knew, they had to have known he couldn't have made it there in time. It gets worse. Wolf pointed out to what she said was 3 glaring issues with how evidence was presented to the jury. The manipulation of the mugshots of Barrientos, specifically the description of his hair, the inadequacy of the defense team that represented Barrientos, and that the jury was not instructed about giving proper weight to eyewitness testimony. Of course, now we know that eyewitnesses get stuff wrong or they could actually pin it on somebody else. Every witness to the shooting said the suspect was bald. So police used old photos of Barrientos with a bald head in the photo arrays, even though they knew grocery store surveillance video from the night of the shooting showed Barrientos with a full head of dark hair. So the cops and the prosecutor, they all knew this, are insisting that in 33 minutes, he drove from Maplewood to this guy's house in South Minneapolis, shaving his head as he's driving, just to do, I guess, a drive-by shooting at 50 miles an hour. Yeah, it has a little bit of a credibility issue, I think. It has, just a smidge. So the police knew he had a head of hair and that the eyewitnesses had a bald man shooting this guy, and they still went with that. Didn't even bat an eye. The lead prosecutor and Hennepin County prosecutors then lied during the trial, the CRU determined, by saying witnesses had described the suspect as having short hair when they said the shooter was bald or had a shaved head. So, okay, first of all, how is any lawyer with this trial still got a law license? They lied to put the wrong man in jail. Police also had conducted suggestive and coercive interviews with juvenile members of the rival gang to label Barrientos the shooter. They threatened another juvenile who was a victim in the shooting by implying that if he couldn't name Barrientos, they could label him an accomplice to the crime. Wow. Nice job, coppers. This is your Bob Kroll Police Department. This screams Bob Kroll quality police work here. They threatened another juvenile who was a victim of the shooting by implying that if he didn't name Barrientos, they would label him an accomplice. Another eyewitness who was not gang affiliated picked someone other than Barrientos out of the lineup. Investigators who failed to use proper protocol for giving witness photo arrays and Barrientos' defense attorneys failed to present the district court with substantial written or oral arguments regarding the unreliability and lineups of the tainted lineup procedures. Moriarty called into question the tactics used to gain the initial conviction. Prosecutors from the office and investigators from the Minneapolis Police Department ignored the obvious evidence before them and failed to follow the known best practices to convict the man they convicted themselves was responsible for murder. We are sorry to both Mr. Barrientos and his family of Jesse Mickelson. The two police investigators involved in the case were Robert Dale and Christopher Gators. Gators is now one of the second highest ranking officers at MPD, serving as Assistant Chief for Community Trust. Ha! Fire his ass. Fire him. He lied to get a conviction. And folks, who's going to bet? He did it a few other times. Who's going to bet? I mean, if they were this brazen with their lies, what do you bet, Mr. I'm in charge of the trust, community trust? What is the bet that he basically has done this to other things? Dale retired in 2023 as a homicide sergeant. Both of them should be in cuffs with their own lawyers. Both of them should be in cuffs with their own lawyers. Both of them should be. Oh, are we about to get a PTSD complaint? Jackass. Hillary Lindell Caligari, one of the Hennepin County prosecutors who tried the case, was appointed to Hennepin County by a Hennepin County judge by Governor Dayton in 2014. Her current term runs through 2028. Christy McNeil, who represented Barrientos, was later found guilty of swindling one of her clients, sentenced to 180 days in the workhouse in order to pay $15,000 restitution. Her law license is suspended. So let's get the judge off the freaking bench if they are that corrupt that they were lying in a trial, and we now know they were lying in a trial. You shouldn't be given a spoon, let alone a courtroom, Christy. Oh, no, excuse me, that's not Christy. That was Hillary Lindell Caligari. Hillary, you need to be fired. We caught you red-handed lying about a case. You should be disbarred for sure. You should not have a courtroom. Dear Lord. We need to have sufficient charges here because there's an obvious point here that these corrupt cops, these corrupt lawyers all participated in. The real killer never was held accountable. The real murderer got away with the crime because of crap police work, lies, just belligerence. They found a guy, they wanted him to be guilty. They lied. How in the freaking hell do you see a video of the guy with a full head of hair and everyone says the guy that shot him was bald and said, no, he wasn't. It was him. He shaved and then he took a magical hair pill and all the hair grew back. He didn't drive over. He used one of those Star Trek teleporters and that's how he got him. How is it we don't have the ability to put that judge in cuffs, to put those cops in cuffs for ruining an individual's life and letting the real shooter go? How is that even possible? Am I about to get a lesson here on quality police work? Screw you. And I want everyone to just take a big step back and look at the big picture. What do you bet that these people did this multiple times? Prosecutor lied in her case, prosecuting the case. How many times did the prosecutor lie before? How many other cases did they put the wrong guy or wrong woman in jail just to clear off the workload? How many other times did these police officers ignore the evidence that pointed to someone else being there saying, we got our guy? Sue them all. Dude, Barrientos, sue them all. Take their houses, take their cars, take their wives and their husbands' cars, take their vacation properties, take every damn thing you can from them, because they sure as hell should not have any protection from this. Take them to court in civil court and do not settle. Do not take their pleas. Take every damn dime you can from that judge and those two cops and that corrupt lawyer that represented you. Every dang dime. And on top of that, you deserve a big check from the state, or from the county, I guess you're going to get it from, because they put you in jail for My God, how in the heck does this even happen? Well, I know. Corrupt cops, corrupt prosecutors. Jaleel Stallings, anybody? Do you remember? Gosh, Freeman under Jaleel Stallings was still trying to get him to take a plea deal, even though they knew the body cam footage showed that he hadn't done a damn thing wrong. Not a damn thing wrong. These people should not be allowed anywhere. Take them for every damn dime they've got. Someone, please, some lawyer, get into Barrientos' ear and take them for every damn dime they got. Because if the review basically says, holy God, did these guys lie like crazy? Well, this should be a relatively open and shut case. Well, unless a certain officers and a certain lawyer are basically the ones presenting the evidence. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Take a break, come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. So the real killer is let go because they just were so determined to get Barrientos and put him in there. The real killer was never prosecuted. And like I said, their own review says, oh yeah, they were lying. God. This is just disturbing. And once again, your argument is in 33 minutes, he ran to the parking lot of the grocery store in Maplewood, got in his car, drove at somehow record pace, which even the police officer doesn't think he could have gotten there in 33 minutes, while shaving his head to pull the crime off. And to basically make your narrative work, you found old mugshots with him with a bald head versus what he actually had at the time of the shooting to try to make him a villain. All you should just burn in jail. Just spend the rest of your time there. If found guilty, which, here's the funny thing. All you guys, if you do get a day in court, will actually have a day in court where you can defend yourself. Unlike him. Unlike Barrientos. Oy. One last thing. Ever since Duluth Mayor Roger Reinhardt took office in January 2024, the Monitor, this is Duluth Monitor's news outlet up there, has received reports from the mayor's girlfriend, Amber Gursky, has been doing her best to help run the city. What? That sounds like the kind of story an intrepid journalist like this would be John Ramos and his colleagues at the Monitor would follow up on, and they did, reviewing emails from the last several months that show that Miss Gursky has delegated tasks to city staff on several occasions and solicited information without going through the official communication channels. The story includes dozens of emails from Gursky on everything from the city's social media engagement ideas to scheduling the mayor to speak at a kindergarten at the library to pointing out typos in press releases. Once again, not an elected official, not an official city employee, the girlfriend of the mayor. Gursky also served as Reinhardt's campaign manager, and she's employed by an automotive lubricant company, Amsoil, of Superior, Wisconsin. Codependency or conflict of interest, you decide. Last week, the Monitor emailed a list of questions to the city public information officer, Kelly Lutoska, wondering, among other things, is Ms. Gursky authorized to issue directives in city staff? Do any other private citizens contact city staff with directives? So they emailed the public information officer. The mayor himself responded. Amber has no formal role in the administration. She is a successful male professional in internal business and marketing and not a city employee. As such, she has no ability to direct staff and instead redirects them to appropriate city contracts, but also, like every other, she has no ability to direct staff and instead redirects them to appropriate city contracts, but also, like everyone other resident, she can freely contact anyone that works for the city hall with ideas, suggestions, and concerns. I'll come back to that. This happens hundreds of times daily from residents and other interested in Duluth issues. Are you dating them? All of those other people too? Mayor? Amber is my partner in both life and this work. I am personally grateful for someone who just cares about the ability to serve the work, the mayoring, but also deeply compassionate about Duluth and success, our community, and is willing to volunteer to support those ends. Dude, this isn't just a regular citizen. It's your girlfriend, dude. And judging from this isn't one or two suggestions. They reviewed emails in the last several months. She delegated tasks to city staff several occasions, solicited information without going through official channels, and apparently ordering staff to do things. That's not what you were voted. You were not elected into office, Mr. Mayor, to allow your girlfriend to basically run things. Now, you yourself say she works outside of city government. That's fine. If she's managing your office, that's something different. So two things. One, this is not just some regular citizen. It's your girlfriend, and you thinking because you get the smoochy on that basically she can go over and dictate whatever anyone, is your street getting plowed in time, stuff like that. I mean, that's pretty outrageous. But as well, you admit she doesn't have an official role within your office. She has another job. Needless to say, dude, this is improper. This should not be happening. I'll check in more on this before too long. Native Roots Radio is up next. Have a good one. We are back on a Wednesday. Till then, see ya.